Hey everybody, it's Angela, and I'm going to make this SaCrafters wood two-story house number 1. And this is how it comes to you, and it may look a little overwhelming at first, but I just pull all the small pieces to the side and concentrated on just putting the shell of the actual house together. And first I do a little bit of a dry fit to make sure I understand how it goes together and how they're positioned. So I just kind of make sure I understand what's going on there. And then I go ahead and prime the whole thing with a coat of white. Now you don't have to do this if you already know what parts of it you're going to cover with paper or which parts you're going to paint. You can go right to it. At this point, I didn't know exactly which way I was going to do it, so I went ahead and just put a coat of primer on everything. And as you can see, I'm not painting over the tabs that insert into the other pieces, just because it makes them a little bit thick and then it's hard to put it all together later. But don't worry if you forget and paint over the tabs. If they are tight, you can just take a little bit of sandpaper and sand them down to fit. So I just go over the whole thing with a coat of white paint, and I'm not, super careful or anything like that, but I just kind of get a key on everything. You can see it looks a little blotchy and everything, but it's just a primer coat. So now I'm going to go ahead and start gluing it. I'm using a Scotch quick dry adhesive, and I use a wet glue for this just because if I need to pull it back apart real quick, if I do something wrong, it gives me a little leeway and a little bit of time to make changes. So I just go ahead and make sure all the tabs and slots have glue on it. And it's not too difficult on the house portion. There's just the 3 walls and the 3 floors. So I go ahead and glue up this other side. Put some glue in the slot and get that fitted on there. And then I just have the bottom floor left to go. I kind of wipe off my glue and stuff just so there's no lumps and bumps, or at least the lumps and bumps are at a minimum. And then I just have the bottom floor to put on here. And so I go ahead and get that together. And what's nice is that there's enough pieces in this that you can go on to something else while another piece is drying. So I set this aside to dry, and then I pull over my furniture pieces to work on them while that's drying. And the furniture that's included in the kit is a bed and bedside table for one room, and then a table and 2 chairs for the other. And I thought about leaving this section out of my video just to make it shorter, but then I kind of wanted you to see how these other pieces go together in case you hadn't already seen Saw's instruction video or assembly video. And so the bed just has 3 pieces. There's the headboard and the platform, and then the 3 sides. So I guess it has 5 pieces. I can't count. And it's really easy to snap together. And I do wind up painting this all white, and then I cover the top and sides of the bed with paper, and I decoupage a little flower on the headboard, a flower that matches the wallpaper that I finally wind up choosing for the room. So it turns out really cute. And the chairs have 3 pieces each, and the tables have 3 pieces each. And as you can see, the table just slots together like that to make a pedestal for the bottom. And then on one side of that pedestal is another little tab that inserts into the tabletop. So it's super simple. Just put a little more wet glue on the top, and there you go. Couldn't be easier. And on the tables, this other table assembles just exactly the same way. On the tables, I paint them white, and I cover the tabletops with paper, and then I use some little trim to go around the edge. But you could use laces and tablecloths and, decals or rub-ons on the top. There's just a lot of different things you could do to change up these little tables. You could make cushions for these chairs if you wanted to, and for the bed. I didn't quite go to those lengths on this, but I can definitely make some little pillows and things to go in here later if I want to. And there I've got the first chair glued up, and on these I paint them white and then just cover the seat in the same paper I covered the table in to make a little matching set. And you'll see that at the end when I show the photos. On the roof, I decided that since there was a floor up there, normally you glue those two roof panels down and they're affixed, but I wanted to be able to open one of the roof panels up so that you could get access to the attic. So I just found some hinges in my stash, some little hinges, and I'm just using some E6000 glue to glue it on there because I didn't have any screws that were tiny enough to work. So while that dries, my house is already dried and I can go back and start painting the outside. I didn't have a yellow paint that I liked, so I took some yellow and added more white to it, and I used this color. But later, after it dried, I just didn't like the color of it, so I actually went back and put another coat of an even lighter yellow on it. This yellow, as I was putting it on, I wasn't thinking about it too much, but later it just looked like a big post-it note to me. So I'm like, no, I've got to repaint it. So I made it a creamier, more of a butter yellow later. And I'm just brushing it on there with a foam brush, and I'm going over the little bars of the window too. At first I thought about masking those off, but then it was just easier to go right over them, and it wound up looking really good. And as I'm brushing this on there, my strokes are going the long way up and down the house. But normally siding, I was thinking about it, would go from side to side. And so I thought, well, how could I get that texture on my house? So first I go here and make the brush strokes go from side to side. And then I take a piece of cardboard and I use the edge of it to make little grooves in there that would be like the siding. And even though this isn't texture paste or anything, you can see the grooves a little bit. And it was a really cool texture, but when I go back and put the lighter color of yellow paint on it later, I kind of lose the grooves. They don't really show up so much anymore. But that's another good option. You could use texture paste on the outside and actually, make siding. You could put real siding on there, like with popsicle sticks or something. You could also use texture paste with like Saw's brick stencil and make a brick house. So there's just a lot of different options, and you could do several of these houses and make a whole mini village, and just by changing them up could, they look completely different. So there is the house so far, and like I said, I do go back and wind up painting it a lighter yellow in the end. I go and I look through my stash. I find this best of crate paper stack, and this is from Michael's. I think they still have it for sale at Michael's right now. And it just happened to be that the scallops on this paper are almost an exact match to the scallops on that roof. So, I mean, it's not 100%, but it is really close. And so it was just like they were made for each other. So I go ahead and cut this out, and I had originally painted the roof white along the edges because I thought I would have to leave a border all the way around, but this paper fit so perfect, I didn't really need to do that. So I'm just trimming it up, making sure everything's square, and look at that. I mean, it was just a happy accident. So I'm going to use Mod Podge to adhere this paper on here, and I use the Mod Podge pretty much for all of the paper that I put on this house. I didn't put Mod Podge over the painted areas, but you could. I mean, you could put it over the whole house just to seal it, protect it from little hands or whatever. I just used it where I did the paper, and because it's on the roof, it will make it easier for me to clean, if it gets dusty or something, and make it easier to wipe off the roof and everything. But I go ahead and I put a coat on, and then I adhere my paper, make sure there's no bubbles or anything, and I've got good adhesion. And then I go back with another layer of Mod Podge over the top. And it looks milky here, but it dries clear. So I just go ahead and get that. And I also use the Mod Podge in the actual rooms when I put that paper on as well. So then I go ahead and do the other side with this little scallop shingle paper. And I also do the gable end on the front, the little triangular piece, with this paper as well, just to give that little detail to the front of the house. Now for the paper on the inside of the rooms, I use some 6x6 pads, and those are good because the patterns for a 6x6 pad are scaled down smaller, and that scale just works really well for a dollhouse. And the only problem I had with that was the fact that if you're papering 3 walls in a room, you really need 3 sheets of paper, and most paper pads don't have 3 sheets. I know Prima a lot of times will give you 3 papers of the same design, but most of them give you only 2. So you could either do a contrasting wall, have 1 wall in 1 paper and then have 2 in the same. I did a wainscoting, and I'll show you that makes 2 papers stretch over 3 walls. So I'll show you that here in a minute. So I just finish up this roof panel, and this will be the one that flips up. The other one will be fixed on the house, and that'll just give you access to that attic and give you more space to display things, and maybe a little secret spot for a kid. So this is the Prima Lyric paper, and I pull out these 2 pieces of kind of whitewashed wood planks, and I cut them down to 4x4, I believe, which is the shape of the floor, and they just look so perfect. The scale is just right, and the planks aren't too big or anything like that. So that's going to be the first 2 floors. Then I pull out this Miss Caroline paper from my mind's eye, and you can see I have that floral and teal paper that I've cut, and also this wood grain that I'm going to use for the floor in the attic. And I like it because it's an unfinished, it's not whitewashed, and so it gives that unfinished look an attic would have. So I just go and I adhere it the same way I did the roof papers. Just make sure that I've got good adhesion on that, and then go ahead and put a coat over the top. It turned out looking really cute. So there's the attic floor done. And then I move on to the floors down below, and this is going to have the Prima paper, and I do it exactly the same and put that on. And I did edge the room papers with some Tim Holtz vintage photo. And this is how I made my 2 floral sheets of paper span over 3 walls. What I did was I cut the paper, one of the papers, in half, and just papered the top half of the room with that floral paper. Then the bottom half of the room, I used this kind of teal, and that looks like a kind of a faux wainscoting. So that way I could get it to stretch over all 3 walls. In the upper room, I don't show it on video, but I actually use a paper from Crate Paper's Baby Girl collection, and I happened to have 3 sheets of that, so I was able to use that on all 3 walls, without doing a wainscoting technique. But like I said, you could do one wall in a solid color and then do 2 floral walls. Would also be a way, or just use your 12 by 12 papers and just find a scale that you like. You know, there's a lot of small scale prints in the 12 by 12s as well. So there I went and I have them all stuck down. So now I'm just going over them with the Mod Podge to seal them. And like I said, I went over all the edges with the vintage photo. And then I do the upper room the exact same way, but that's not on video. I just Mod Podge it all on there. So I go ahead and get that room finished up. And it turns out really cute. And I love the bright colors. The white floors work really well, brightening up the interior. And then it looks like I'm just applying the floor in the upper room. And that just bounces the light. I do wind up putting some Dollhouse lights in here that I had already. They're just magnetized ones that I stick in there, and I'll show you those at the end. So now I go on to doing the window shutters and window frames. And I've already painted them white. And I just use some of that same wet glue, and then I put just a little dot of hot glue on there, and the hot glue just holds it in place while the wet glue dries. And I love that she included this detail in the kit because it really makes the outside of this house, it really pops. Even with nothing else, I mean, I put other decorations and stuff on here, but even with nothing else, just having this detail makes it so special. So I'm doing the same thing, just putting wet glue and then a little tiny dab of hot glue to hold it while everything dries. And I do all the other windows exactly the same way. Then you can see I put that front triangular gable on there, and I've used the same paper I used on the roof. And now I'm putting on the one roof panel that will be affixed, just putting a little glue on there. I put some more small scale paper on the walls in the attic, and I just popped that roof panel on there. And at first I thought maybe the roof wouldn't sit flat, the hinged part, and that I would need those tabs for that roof panel to sit into to kind of lock it down. But actually, even with the hinges, the roof panel sat just fine. So I didn't really need those tabs on there after all. So I went and got this coping saw and just decided to just saw those right off and make it flush. So I just saw that, and then I just sand the edge real quick, and then saw the other little tab off. And that's just a little coping saw that I have in my craft room. And I popped this off because the glue hadn't been all the way dry and set yet, and just the sawing was a little bit too much stress for that. So I just pop it off and put a little more glue and glue that back on. And then I'll leave it alone so it can dry. So that's the top, and then I'll just glue the other panel, glue the hinges onto that other side later. And now that raw edge that was showing where I sawed those tabs off, I'm just going to put a little bit of white paint on there. And it just gives it that little bit of a finished look, because you're always going to see that edge every time you open the door there. And then that gives you an extra little secret room up there. So now I go into my stash and I pull out a bunch of other SaCrafters products. Now these don't come in the kit. These are ones that I already had. I have some bird houses and a couple little birds and a little chandelier, bird cage. I have some little bicycles. I also have that fencing there. These little like garden lattice. I'm going to use the smallest one. There's like, I think 3 different sizes in that package. So I'm just going to use the smallest one. And I also have that little street sign that I'm going to use as well. And the fence is not the right scale. It's too tall. So you'll see I wind up cutting the fence in half to make it the right size. But she has some wood fence in her shop that's smaller that would probably work perfect, but I happen to have this chipboard larger fence in my stash already, so I just kind of made do with what I had, just popping out any extra little bits that were still in the pieces. And then I wind up painting the lattice and the fencing all in white to match the shutters of the house. And I mean, you know, you want to have a white picket fence. And there you can see I cut the fence in half. So now I have 2 fences. I have that one and I have that. And I like this one with the that kind of undulates at the top there. So I'm going to use that top portion. And then because it goes over the shutters, I need to have a little spacer. And those little bits that you pop out of your other pieces, don't throw those away right away, because they work perfect for spacers if you need them, because they're exactly the same width as the shutters, so you know that it's going to be spaced just perfectly. So I just glue that on and stick that down, and then I'm going to use 2 little small portions of fence to go on either side of this lattice, because I only had a certain portion of fence in my stash, and so I'm trying to make it last to go all the way around the house. And I actually run short, but I'll show you what I do to kind of hide the fact that I don't have enough fence. So I just glue those direct to the house because there's no shutter in the way. This one that has some shutters and stuff, I have to put some spacers behind. So I just glue a few more spacers to the back of this portion of fence. And like I said, I didn't have quite enough, so this fence is a little shy of reaching the edge. But I go ahead and glue it down. And then I'm going to hide the fact by putting this fence post at the end, so it kind of looks like it was supposed to end right there. And because this sign has to go over the shutter, I need to put spacers behind it as well. So again, I take more of my little scraps that I've popped out of other areas and just put them behind there. And these other items I'm going to paint different colors. So there is my house so far. I'm going to put the birdhouse there and everything, but I need to paint those first. I'm going to put the bicycle on that side, just kind of leaning up against the fence. And you can see I've glued my other hinges on so that the roof is all on there now. So now I go and I pull out my paints, and those are all the paints that I pretty much have acrylic paint wise. So I pulled this that I had got the other day because I knew my paint colors were kind of limited. I found this in the clearance section, so I thought this would be perfect because I don't need a ton of different colors or amounts of colors. So this will be perfect for me. And so I go through and I decide to paint this little birdhouse with this peach color. It's a really pretty peach. And I thought about filling the inside of the hole, but then I thought the yellow of the house showing through it would actually look pretty good. So I just decide to paint the birdhouse. And then the bird, I wanted it to be a blue bird, and I painted it this blue first, but that was just too bright, too intense of a blue. So I wind up giving him a second coat. I look through my paints and I find this lighter blue here in my hand so I put a coat of that on later because I want him to be a bluebird. I think he's a crow in his description in Saw's store. I think he might even be maybe in the Halloween stuff. I'm not sure, but I'll put links to all the products below. But mine is going to be a bluebird, and this one is going to be a canary, because he's going to be the bird that's by the cage in the house. So I paint him yellow. And the bike, I started to paint yellow because I thought that would be cute. But then I remembered the house is yellow, and I really don't want yellow on yellow. You know, you wouldn't really notice it as much. So I decided to make the bicycle pink. So I grab the pink paint, and there's just a lot of little intricate areas in this bike. So it does take a little bit of time to paint the whole thing. The chandelier I painted white, and now I'm going to emboss it with some sparkly white embossing powder. Gives it almost purple iridescence to it. So I just heat set that. And I'm going to glue that to one of the back walls in the house. And there you can see how it's sparkly. It looks almost has a purple tinge to it. And you can see I also did my fence, my street sign in the blue, the same blue I did the bird. So there's, I think, all my pieces painted and dry. So now I bring my house back, and I use a little bit of hot glue just to adhere these pieces. So I've got the birdhouse, and then my little bluebird's kind of coming in for a landing on his house. And I like it a lot better with that lighter color of blue. The other was just too intense. On this side, I go ahead and I put the street sign. Just put a little bit of hot glue where it's going to touch the shutter and on the spacer. So that looks really nice. It looks like the fence was meant to end there. And then I pull out my little pink bicycle, put a little hot glue on there, lean it up against the fence, kind of like a kid that forgot to put it away. So that's really cute. Gives me a little extra interest on each side of the house. So I go into my stash and I pull out these flowers, and I go through. These are all paper flowers from various different sources. I think a lot of them are from Wild Orchid Craft. I looked for the smaller ones. I have a few of the rose buds, and mostly the size of like that pink one there, and one size of like brown ones that's a little bit smaller than that. I was running somewhat low on the yellow and purple and peach. Actually, I don't know if I even have any peach ones left, and I didn't have any white ones that I could paint or spray peach either. So I have that one kind of lavender rose I put on there, and so I think I try to put one or two yellow roses and one lavender one on each side or something like that to kind of space them all around. I use the little rose buds. I twist like 3 of them together and then kind of form them around the trellis. I don't want to fill the whole trellis in solid or anything like that. I want it to look like the rose is actually kind of climbing along there, and I want you to be able to still see the lattice. So I try not to go too crazy with all these flowers. Sometimes it's hard to hold yourself back. All the flowers are so pretty. So, you just kind of keep smashing them on there. So this one I try to get to climb up the post of the birdhouse. And then I also want the flowers to kind of give the effect that they're kind of going around the corner and stuff. So you'll see I tried to twist a few of the rosebuds together and kind of get them to kind of go around the corner, form them around the corner. That just kind of connects everything together. Yeah, here I just kind of try to make it just kind of bend over the corner a little bit. Then I hold it on with another rose. And then one of my subbies left a comment that you can get rid of the glue strings by hitting it with the heat gun, and it works really well. just kind of blast it with the heat gun and it gets rid of a lot of those little glue strings. So that's what I did. And there I'm putting one of my lavender roses on that side. And then I'm trying to save like a yellow one, a couple yellow ones for each side as well, so I get them kind of evenly spaced. I twist together a few more of the rose buds and just kind of form them like they're trying to climb up onto the shutter. And then I also take just a few more roses and put them at the front of the bicycle. So again, I'm trying not to go too hog wild with all the flowers. So I think that's all I'm going to do on that side. On this side, I put them around the street sign, and I put them to the front to kind of hide that spacer that I have behind there, so that when you're looking straight on, you don't really see the spacer that's behind the street sign. I put a few rosebuds just to look like they're climbing up the sign. And again, I try to use a yellow and a purple on this side and then fill the rest in with the pink. And then I think I have a couple of the smaller kind of brown ones that I stick in there too. I think I twist a few more rosebuds together on this little shutter, or maybe I don't. I can't remember. Guess not. So there's that other side. I just blast it with the heat gun to get rid of those little glue strands. And the flowers just really bring together everything. It just kind of gives it that softening of the structure. So for the ceiling inside, I decide to emboss some white paper with this Lifestyle Crafts embossing folder. And I just like the look of the embossed textured ceilings. And, you know, I could have just left it white paint, but since I have the embossing folders already and the tools to do it, I thought I'd just give it that extra special touch. And, you know, a lot of people aren't ever really going to notice this, but, you know, some people will notice that it has, you know, an embossed ceiling. So I just do it like I did the floors, cut a 4x4 inch piece and use Mod Podge to adhere it. And in here I wind up, I already do a lot of dollhouse stuff, and so I had some dollhouse lights, and I go ahead and use some magnetic ones on the ceiling. And what you do is you just glue this little thin metal disc on the ceiling, and then you have an LED battery operated light that just sticks to that disc via magnet. And yeah, and then you can just take it out to change the battery or to turn it on and off, and you'll see it at the end. Just adds that little extra something. So there is the inside of my house with its embossed ceiling. And I had one tab that didn't get painted white that I just kind of touch up there. So there's my table with the paper on top and the chairs with a little bit of trim around the edges. You can see my little battery operated LED lights that I've stuck on there. The bird cage with its canary. And then the bed with its little decoupaged flower on the headboard to match the wallpaper. And then just paper on the bed and the table. The chandelier on the back wall. And then that light, which is just up there on a magnet. There is the little attic room. Turned out really cute. Just an extra little space to store stuff. So there is my Cherish Boulevard, but you know, you could flip that sign around and put stickers on there to name it anything you want. You could make it Angela Boulevard. There's the lattice with the birdhouse and the little bird. Then I have this handmade by Angela Blanchard that I got from SaCrafters as well. You just tell her what you want on there and she'll engrave it for you. The bicycle. And I just think it turned out so super cute. I know it's something that's gonna, stay around in the family, or be around for many years to come. So that is my finished dollhouse. I'll have some still pictures after this for you to take a look at. But if you have any questions or anything, just leave me a comment below. And thank you guys so much for watching. I had so much fun making this, and Christmas is coming up. You still have time to make one of these, so take a look in the description down below. I'll put links to all the products that I used. And again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.